Speaking of sleeping, I guess, they're trying to make Raw more exciting. I know you had a hectic week. I know you tried to hit the high points of Raw. You can see they're trying to make it more exciting, but that's hard to do from dead stop with a 3 full hour program. And I think they're going to find out that today, when we talk about these shows, we're not going to review who did what as much as what does it mean or what could it have been or what is their issue. Because this wrestling war is reversing, not necessarily due to anything anybody has done right, but just because of the things that have happened. And now Triple H and the WWE are trying to do a few things right, but is it too late for them? Because have they already made it impossible to make an impression on anybody anymore because of what they've done in the past? Now everybody's comparing because of these A&E shows and the retrospectives. Everybody's looking at 20 years ago when all this stuff was allowed to be done for the first time and go, wow, look at the people are going crazy. Yeah, it's because they had never seen shit like that. Now they've been seeing it for 20 fucking years. What else can you do? So I understand what they're trying to do, but they may be handicapped because if you're trying to make Raw again like it was in the 90s, exciting and impromptu and unpredictable, and it's said not as stagey and with, personalities on it that people care about, that have life and passion, that are interacting with each other. It's not as easy as it was in the Attitude Era, because for 20 years now, people have been looking at fucking every angle, every bump, every ridiculous skit. They've taken a tractor and turned the ring over. Everything it's so much harder to make people care about the talent involved because the talent level overall is not there. There's still talent, but not as much of it. And it don't look as good as it used to. And everything that the talent that currently is not across the board as strong as it was 20 years ago, everything they can do to stand out's already been done. Unless they just want to, fucking literally pull a hand grenade pin and shove it up their own ass on TV and blow themselves up. That's pretty much where we're at. So it ain't as easy as it used to be. And we've got fewer big names that can be brought back for the guaranteed response. So now it's, it is what it is. I mean, they lucked out here with Trish Stratus in Toronto. But, did you see the Open with Riddle and Rollins?
I saw most of it.
They do the show open and they come to the announcers, and I basically just noticed, because I haven't actually watched before, but Raw has the worst opening music of any television show of any genre in the history of broadcasting. God, that song is fucking rotten. But right as soon as the announcers start talking, they go to the back in the camera, and there is Riddle and Rollins fighting in the gorilla position and people trying to separate them. And then they spill out into the arena and they go up the stairs into the stands and they have a decent fight and they have a pull apart with the officials. They're trying to make it exciting. But again, it doesn't register something like that. That's a trick from the Attitude Era. It doesn't register anymore because if you've watched any program, the NXT parking lot, remember we joked was the most dangerous place to be apart from maybe Cambodia or Afghanistan, because there wasn't a week went by that 2 or 3 people weren't assaulted or kidnapped. You watch AEW, they're fighting before the goddamn music starts. They're fighting in the back. They're fighting in the parking lot. It's not this easy anymore. You can do the things that worked once, but they have been trivialized and made meaningless by repetition, which is what I've been screaming for 20 years. My God. I mean, Hugh Hefner's the only one that didn't get tired of fucking Playboy bunnies after 60 fucking years. Even if it's good, you can't watch it constantly over and over for decades. So they're trying. But then Trish Stratus comes to the ring. She's in Toronto. She's happy to be back. And about that time, here comes Bayley's music and her girls, Io and, oh God, Dakota.
That's
Dakota.
Right.
She North Dakota or South Dakota? And as soon as this happens, Trish gets out. I'm happy to be back. Bayley's music plays. Okay, let's see what this is going to be. And they go to a break. 8 minutes into the show, they go to a break. Conversely, over on the other side of the street, AEW, I think, lasted 20 minutes before they went to a break this week. But so already we've seen a fight, then it's settled down to girls talking to each other, and now we're going to go to a 3.5-minute commercial break. Not sure about the formatting, but when we come back, Bayley and the heels are cutting a promo on Trish. And Io Sky, even though she's not Io Shirai anymore, is still acting like a simple-minded child. That I assume she's been instructed to do this. It's very off-putting, not to mention racist. Riddle me this, Brian, because I wasn't watching a lot of the product when Trish was on top. I know she's a star. I know she's very well thought of. But was she at one point a good interview? And this, she was just kind of like, well, I'm back. I'm not sure if I need to go all the way with this. What do you know about Trish's promo skills?
I don't think promos were ever really her strong suit, although she wasn't terrible. But again, it was a different time. At that time, too, she was also one of the greatest women wrestlers I'd ever actually seen do things in a ring, because Moolah didn't do anything in there. It was the same match for years. So Trish really stood out. I mean, whenever anyone talks about Lita, Lita wouldn't have been Lita without Trish. And you could probably say the same the other way, but Trish was really good for a time when women's wrestling wasn't yet a priority to people. But it was because she was athletic, she looked good, and she got better in the ring as she kept going. I don't think it was ever about promos.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad to know she hadn't lost anything, because she didn't have it. She's trying to say she's there to support Edge, but the heels keep cutting her off. And as they start to menace Trish, here comes Bianca's music. And Bianca comes down and says, basically, she says Trish invented girl wrestling. I think that's what her meaning was. I don't know. She's a trailblazer. But anyway, then Trish takes her jacket off and threatens to unretire. And Bayley takes her jacket off and says, well, it's still 3-on-2. And then more music plays. Now here comes Asuka and Alexa Bliss. And now it's 4-on-3. And Bayley decides to bow out and say, I'll see y'all at Clash of the Castle. And then everybody just huddled up on two sides of the ring and stood there, and music started playing, and they decided to start the tag team match with Dakota and Sky against Oscar and Alexa. And good Lord, they started the match with Oscar flapping her arms and quacking at, I guess it was Dakota, like a Japanese chicken, and started out, and within 2 minutes or less, they were going to the break. So we got to hear a long interview with a lot of girls, and then they start actually having a match, and they go to break. And then they come back, and they have more match, and then they go to break again. And then they come back, and they have more match. And by the time this thing was over, we were 37 minutes into the program. And bear in mind, Riddle and Rollins were out of there by about 6 after the hour. So it was half an hour of this women's tag team tournament Clash at the Castle promotion with the girls. And that's a long fucking time, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it certainly was. And unfortunately, time was limited for me this week. So it was a lot of time that I'm sure someone enjoyed.
There you go. So then Dolph Ziggler is in the back with a promo on Austin Theory. But Balor interrupts him, and Balor insults Ziggler, and Ziggler gives Balor a light slap in the face where Balor bumps to the floor like he'd been slapped with a fucking one of those arms that comes down to block the fucking train over the tracks. And Ziggler called him a little bitch and dared him to come on out to the ring. So they had a match.
So Ziggler's a babyface now?
Well, I guess.
He was a heel the last time we saw him, right? Am I wrong?
I guess.
It was in NXT, I think.
I guess, yes. Of course. See, here again, I'm a big fan of Dolph Ziggler. His work for years has been exciting and fantastic and blah, blah, blah. And he's got personality. He's a good-looking athlete. And we've talked about Balor in the past. Technically, he's fine. But now the way that both of them have been presented, it's ridiculous. Ziggler has hung around and been booked like a bowl of applesauce for years. And the only time they ever pushed him recently was when they sent him to NXT and put him on top to teach the young guys some timing and on-the-job training, and I can understand that. But it's another time you've managed to have a guy on your roster that has been there so long and that you have done such goofy things with, that instead of being, an iconic presence that could lend something, he's the guy that's hung around there and been booked like a bowl of applesauce. And with Balor, it's more of the same, except not as long. He hadn't been booked like applesauce as long as Dolph has. But he was obviously the weak link in Judgment Day. Edge was the Hall of Fame level main event star with the credibility and the backstory and the cachet with the audience that could take two rising superstars that almost can't miss prospects like Damien Priest and Rhea Ripley and elevate them in people's eyes and in the ring. Finn Balor is a guy that's technically great, has personality of cabbage, doesn't have an intimidating look or a promo. So now the people that are supposed to be being the proteges are the better promos and more interesting in the ring, because Balor's been beat like a goddamn rug for a long time now until they decide, let's do something with him again. So Ziggler versus Balor, technically fine, but both guys have been presented like shit and aren't interesting now to the audience. So to put them together means that there's nobody to give a hand up. So the fans mostly sat on their hands. And I would physically, if it was a fight and I had money to put on the winner, I'd bet on Rhea Ripley over Dolph before Finn Balor. And so would the contractors down there that are back from lunch and hammering on my ceiling.
I think that means they consent. They agree with what you're saying.
Knock 3 times on the ceiling if you agree with me. There you go. So anyway, in this match, Ripley nailed Ziggler from the apron and Finn Balor hit his double foot stomp, 1, 2, 3. And there you go. And we were an hour into the show at that point. So, I mean, again, you see where I'm going with this. They've got some talent, but it's been so long since the people have had a reason to care about some of these people. You can't just instantly snap your fingers and, oh, shit. They don't miss these guys because they never went away. And right now, the way they've been presented, if they went away, people wouldn't miss them. What do you think?
I think you're right, but I think part of the issue is the talent you have access to. To be very honest, and I think Dolph Ziggler is an incredibly talented guy, but I think the window for him to be used right ended a while ago, specifically because of the way they used him over a long period of time. That's not to take anything away from him or what he does. But I also think that right now they got to use the talent they have. And right now it may feel at times like NXT from a year ago or a couple years ago elevated onto a national stage, but they have to use the talent they have. And with this news that we'll talk about later about the contract tampering accusations that AEW made against WWE, or at least sent them a legal note to the two co-CEOs, they may not be talking to any AEW talent for a while just out of precaution, whether they're free of contract or not, because that's what happened, I think, with TNA years ago.
Yes.
So there may be some recycling of talent, and we may have to live with that while we see minor changes and eventually maybe bigger sweeping changes to the product, but it's going to be little by little right now. And again, they can only do so much with the talent they have.
Well, and it's good you brought that up. Also, the time where they sent the cease. Who was it over? God damn it! They sent the cease and desist, and
wasn't it over that guy who ended up becoming Cody Rhodes' agent, or is that something else?
I'm trying to think, but at any rate, there was a period of time, and I'm sure one of the listeners will come up with the details where TNA had sent WWE a threatening cease and desist, don't contract tamper our talent, to the point where a couple of guys that were ready to leave and wanted to go then got put on hold and couldn't be brought up even after their deals were up because they didn't want to make it look like it was too close. So anyway,
it kept them away from people they actually were legally allowed to contact.
Yes. But who knows whether they're going to, I mean, at this point, we'll get in this later on, but the WWE sees this thing falling apart, the AEW thing, and they see everybody not happy. And Triple H is already, I'm sure, talking to both people that might be happy and people that aren't happy, or any of the other dwarves.
I mean, the other move is you go through wrestlers. Instead of contacting a wrestler directly, you say, hey, if you talk to this guy, I can't find out how much longer he has on his contract. Maybe you could find out. And if you let me know, no one else will know.
He's allowed to tell you because you're his bosom buddy. And then nobody's going to know that you told me, and then I told this guy, and this guy told. Anyway, back to Raw. Here's two other guys they could revamp. Gable and Otis. Remember when Chad Gable and I believe his partner was Jason Jordan? They had
American Alpha.
Impeccable tag team matches with FTR and NXT. And we said these guys are one of the greatest modern babyface teams we've seen. And so Jordan gets hurt, and they've made Gable Shorty Gable to accentuate his negative attributes. And now he's some kind of fucking blithering simpleton that tells the people shh all the time, shoosh. And they're in Alpha Academy like they're Vince, at least, I assume, because these gimmicks predate Triple H taking over here recently, but Vince wanted people to think that these 30-something-year-old guys were all in college. But poor Harlem Bravado became Andre Chase of Chase University, wearing a Letterman sweater and doing phony shit on NXT. And these guys are, I don't know what this academy is all about. And Otis stands there like a fat fucking stand-in for fucking Otis Campbell on the goddamn Andy Griffith show. And they came out and did a fucking promo and did the stuff. And this gimmick is unwatchable. And poor Gable, he's trying, and they gave him all kinds of insults for Canada, which the way that he's doing it comes out as fake, like I'm going to insult all of you and your country so you will boo me, rather than it being a natural thing, like I'm disgusted at having to be in this fucking putrid part of the world. And why even put these guys out there it's just a waste. So then comes Owens, and because they're in Toronto, which is close to Montreal, and it's Canada, and Kevin Owens is a Canadian hero, they give KO a fucking match with Gable, which of course we know he's going to win, and guess what he does? And again, it's presentation and it's context and what you tell people a guy is. And when we first saw Gable, we were blown away by how good he was in that tag team against those opponents in that environment and the way they were presented. And the same fucking guy is not worth the goddamn energy that it would take for me to pick up a ball peen hammer and smash my remote so I never turned his television program on again. Same guy. Different presentation.
He was a young, athletic, good-looking wrestler with longer hair, had a look, even though he wasn't a big guy. But he could work with that. He could use that to his advantage, plus he had the real credentials. So he got brought up to the main roster, and we've seen how that journey has been. That's going to be an example of the difference right there.
And people, and I guarantee you, Bruce has said this 100 times, and all the people who listen to all the shit that Vince tries to teach all the people who don't know anything about wrestling, what they've done to him is they've given him personality. They've given him personality where regular people can enjoy him too instead of just wrestling fans. I got news for you.
No.
Not only is no regular people watching this shit anymore, but most of the wrestling fans aren't. So you might ought to want to try to get them back first.
Regular people could relate to an actual athlete in professional wrestling having athletic matches with reasoning behind it. They can't relate to a grown man acting like a child yelling shush. There's no relatability there. It's all about, oh, look, it's a grown adult acting like a child. This is what wrestling is. And this guy had a lot of potential. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you say him and Otis, they have a story. I believe they were wrestlers together before WWE, amateur wrestlers together. But we've seen the way Otis has been used. You know, I mean, all these guys, we could point to every one of these guys that we saw in NXT, and I don't remember Otis in NXT, but you think about Gable, they were one thing, it was working, you watch it and you start thinking, wow, I wonder what could be done with them on the main roster. How could they be used? How could you take advantage of this? And then we get up there and everything, which, I mean, I'm talking to you. That's the OVW syndrome I'm talking about. Basically, Vince brought back the OVW syndrome, and that's what happened.
Well, he should have brought back OVW. Then he wouldn't be in this fucking predicament because he'd have talent. We would try, actually, no, he should have brought back over. Danny Davis would shoot me in the head with a cannon if he heard me say, fucking bring back over. He is happily in Florida and doesn't watch wrestling. But anyway, unfortunately, I have to watch it, but only because I'm currently still making money off of it.
Bring back Dr. Tom and Rip. That's what I'll say.
There you go. Rip's available. All he does is go to the gym, work. Have you seen his goddamn Twitter?
Yeah, the shareholders will love him.
Rip Rogers is 68 years old and goes to his gym in Seymour. They have a thing where they post the most frequent members. In other words, whoever has membership at this gym, the most frequent times the people are in, right? Like Joe leads the pack. He was here 28 out of 30 days, and then Ben had 27 or whatever. Rip Rogers never has less times at the gym than there were days in the month, and he actually usually has more times at the gym than there were days in the month. He's always number one by far. Nobody else even compares. He's almost 70 years old. Man's a maniac. Speaking of maniacs, as we mentioned, Kevin Owens defeated Shorty Gable in that one. You know, and Kevin, my old friend Kevin, he's looking in better shape these days, isn't he, Brian? Back in the Ring of Honor days when he was fat and out of shape and didn't spend a lot of money on his gear and had random armpit bleeds and wouldn't trim his beard and get a haircut so that he might look like that he didn't spend the night in a viaduct or under an overpass. He's come a long way since then. I used to nag him about his weight, but now he's got it under control. You know what I think the difference is, Brian?
No.
I think the difference is back then, he was just being told to do what was right and eat what was right, but he wasn't being paid to do those things. He wasn't being rewarded for doing those things. They just would have been things that he could do to get ahead and make himself a better human being. But when he started getting paid to do these things, then he got in better shape. And then he got better gear. And then he trimmed himself up a little bit. But you know, the biggest difference is not only getting paid to motivate yourself to do better, but also being able to afford better things. And when Steen was back in the Indies, maybe even in Ring of Honor, he was running up and down the roads eating fast food. He was eating processed food. He was eating fake food with additives and preservatives. He was eating bad food. And you know what my mother used to say? I'd rather eat good food than bad food any day. Well, that's what happened to Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens. Once he got off the Indies and he got on the payroll of World Wrestling Entertainment, he could afford good quality food. And that's made the entire difference. But you know what? You don't have to work for the WWE to afford good quality food. You just need to know where to shop for it. And I'll tell you what, no more of the gas station microwave cheeseburgers for Kevin Owens. No, sir. No, sir. No more of those Dalmatian meat on a stick kebabs at the local drive-thru for no. All Kevin Steen and all exceptional people, all successful people, all they eat now is quality beef from OmahaSteaks.com. Folks, summer's in full swing. It's almost swung. But no backyard grillette is complete without the Omaha Steaks, and you've still got months of good weather before you'll be out there grilling steaks in a parka. And if you visit OmahaSteaks.com and enter the keyword JCE into the search bar right now, they've got a couple of different packages you're going to love. The All-American Assortment. This package has mouth-watering items from the butcher-cut filet mignons to the caramel apple tartlets. I'm talking about entree all the way to dessert. And with the All-American Assortment, you get 12 ultra-juicy Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. You can fill up the whole grill just with the food they're going to send you for free. And folks, as this is the All-American Assortment, you will get a certificate of authenticity stating that every single one of the cows that were involved in the carnage that produced this beef were born right here in the United States of America. Most of them, as a matter of fact, come from Nebraska, from what I'm told. Several of them were named, and some of the children that named them were unhappy that they became part of the All-American Assortment package. But
there are no cows named. I don't know why I have to give that disclaimer, but there are no cows named.
Most of them are from Nebraska. A few of them from Oklahoma slipped in, but most are from Nebraska. It's the All-American Assortment.
Originally, or that's where they moved later in life?
Well, most of these cows were homebodies. They like to stay close around where they were foaled or hatched or birthed or popped out or whatever they do. But you get 12 free burgers with that package. But if that's not what you're looking for, then they've got an option to build your own perfect menu. Again, omahasteaks.com, enter code or keyword JCE in the search bar. Build your own perfect menu. Pick out the favorite items out of the options provided and create your own grilling adventure, and you'll still get 12 free Omaha Steaks burgers. They have gone out of their mind. They have never given away this much free cattle byproduct before. You can spend endless hours eating dead cow, and it won't cost you a thing. 12 free burgers. Let's say you give yourself 2 burgers. And then, Brian, you have a family of 4 children and a wife. So let's say you give them 2 burgers to split.
To split?
So, yeah, to split. Boy, you don't want to lose all your burgers. So you got 2 burgers and you give them 2 burgers. They can split between the 5 of them.
They can have the burgers. I'd rather feed my family and I'll be over here. I'll just have some coffee or something.
Oh, you insane lunatic. Stuff those burgers down your neck. And then give them 2. And the thing is, you've only used 4 burgers. You can do that. You can feed the whole family 3 times on 12 free burgers, 2 for you and 2 for the rest of the family. They'll make out all right. And again, all these cows come from America. You're not going to have any illegal cattle involved. You're not going to have anybody sneaking over the border. No, as a matter of fact, the cows in Texas have lined up. And they're preventing any illegal border crossings by the Mexican cattle. And everybody knows
they don't even have a cattle guard.
A cattle guard, yeah, the Texas Cattle Guard. Everybody knows they don't have cows in Canada.
I didn't know that. What do you mean everybody knows they don't have cows in Canada?
It's too cold. It's too cold. It freezes their udders up. They can't give milk. It comes out like popsicles.
Well, there have to be cows in Canada. You can't say there are no cows in Canada.
No, they import all the beef and the milk. They import it from OmahaSteaks.com up in Canada. They're the official Canada beef suppliers and the milk and the horns.
For the record, we don't know that to be a fact. Just want to say that they're the official meat supplier of the country of Canada.
I've heard it. I've heard it rumored.
may not be.
I don't know if they want to come out and just advertise that or not, because there may be issues with the Intercontinental North American Trade Agreement or whatever.
NAFTA?
Whatever it is. But nevertheless, that's the thing is, and whether you want your meat well done or medium rare, you know how I like my steak. Just knock the horns off and bring it out on a leash. But whatever you like, go to omahasteaks.com today. Type JCE and the keyword. That's the keyword. Type it in the search bar. Fill your freezer with enough cattle byproduct to keep your cookouts going strong all summer long. omahasteaks.com, keyword JCE. Boy, what packages. And boy, these are patriotic cows.
Okay. That's a transition there for something.
Well, speaking of patriotism, it's time for Judgment Day. On Raw, yeah. I think Judgment Day came on patriotism in this country about a year and a half ago. Again, I mentioned it. They did an interview in the back. Rhea Ripley is great. She's a movie star. Damien Priest is great. He looks like something. Finn's old news, and he looks like somebody's delinquent nephew. And there's no leader there now. Bayley wrestled on the program. She's back. She wrestled Aaliyah. I like Bayley. Her promos are great when she's in something important. I will gladly watch it. And we stop then. The magic wheel of doom stops on the tag team of Tommaso Ciampa, who is now just Ciampa, and Miz, who is now just still boring.
Oh, come
against
on.
Bobby Lashley and AJ Styles.
We've seen so much shit. He's all right. He's all right. He commits to it. There's no holes in his shit. He commits to being this dick. You got to respect that.
Well, you got to respect the dickery. Hickory dickory dock. This chick, never mind. So to watch.
Stop before we have to pay Ruben.
Yeah. Well, he'll get over it. To see Ciampa, we got to watch The Miz. All right. And at that point, again, Stacy was in the room while I'm watching this show. She's looking at her laptop and she's, doing something with her nails. She's busily trying to entertain herself while I'm having to watch this program. But she looks up and she sees Ciampa. And of course, she remembers him from Ring of Honor. But as soon as Ciampa locks up and grabs the best headlock that you will see on on this program or AEW, either one, she said, and this one sentence encapsulates everything that everybody is probably thinking. She said, "I'm so tired of watching sloppy work. It's so refreshing to see a guy actually putting a headlock on." And then later on, I wrote down, Ciampa has the best chin lock that I've seen in wrestling in 6 months. It's not fucking difficult. But you've got one guy out here who's actually trying to do this shit right, and he's not worried about doing a goddamn back triple Lindy half somersault gainer off the fucking high diving board. He looks like he's putting a hold on somebody and cranking it and making them uncomfortable. Imagine that. And it's a joy. He's almost flawless in his work. Everything means something. He's got the timing. He puts the hold on correctly, or he does the move correctly. And, of course, now again, he's the Miz's fucking sidekick. And he was tremendous in NXT, and then they cut his nuts off as soon as he showed up on the main roster, beat him, he took away half of his name, et cetera, et cetera. But if you just want to watch a guy that refreshingly enough actually knows how to work, it's very pleasurable. Miz looks like a cashier at a car wash. And they got a long heat on AJ Styles in this, and then bless them, and I know some of these guys know different, so either they're being told not to do this on purpose for some unknown reason. They're being told to not do a hot tag, not have an exciting match. I don't know. But not only after this long heat on AJ Styles, not only was it a cold tag to Bobby Lashley, the baby faces tagged first. The heels hadn't even tagged, and the baby faces tagged first. It wasn't even simultaneous. The baby faces tagged first. Have I said that often enough? So all that long set of heat was just trivialized and made meaningless. But Lashley made a comeback and beat up both of them, and they got in a four-way. And then, did you see the finish to this match?
I did not.
All right. Well, I'll try to explain it to you. And we actually probably need a Venn diagram and a pie chart and what do they call those? PowerPoint presentations. AJ does some move and rolls out to the floor and is immediately, as his back is to the barricade of ringside, a fan, quote unquote, a fan in black attire and a black hoodie, reaches over, jumps over the rail and grabs him and tackles him. And immediately security, quote unquote, security, grab the guy and drag him back, including there's a guy there in, do you remember when Edge came into the ECW pay-per-view, he had the cop's biker helmet or riot helmet you couldn't see through, and he does the spear, and then he takes the fucking helmet, or one of those type of helmets.
Right. I remember though. You
can't see through it at all. There's one guy in that group of people, the security or whatever, has one of those helmets on. Well, they grab this guy that jumped AJ and take him off. And then over on the other side, Miz has taken a bump on the floor, and another fan in one of those black helmets you can't see through is right behind Miz, and he takes the helmet off, and it's Dexter Lumis. He's back. Another Triple H rebound signing.
Well, I think there had been something on Raw the last several weeks. I'd seen a couple clips where they didn't address it.
He's been back, and he's been hauled out of the arena.
Right.
By security. But the point is, I'm saying he's back. Triple H has obviously brought him back. But Lumis takes the helmet off, grabs Miz, drags him over the barricade and all the way out of the arena. And while he's dragging him out of the arena, I don't know whether it was Corey Graves or Jimmy Smith, or one of the announcers said, "Get some goddamn help out here." So I guess goddamn's okay on USA now. But they ring the bell. It's a disqualification. And again, as Stacy pointed out right before she got up and walked out of the room after this one, so everybody was in sync on this, that the distraction fan came over the rail to tackle AJ, so the security would be dragging him out so that Lumis, who had obviously paid all these other people to do this, could be on the other side of the ring, and while the security was over there, could drag Miz over the rail and kidnap him. Why aren't these people fucking coordinating our military invasions? Because this seems to be a lot of trouble to go through and a lot of fucking moving parts for Dexter Lumis to set this up all on his own, when he could have actually just ran out and dove over the railing and tackled the guy he wanted to fight. It was busy is what it was. And everybody in the arena is going, ooh, what about? So the bell is rung, the DQ is called, Miz has been kidnapped and carried out of the arena. So what do AJ Styles and Bobby Lashley do? They get the heel that's left, Ciampa, and they beat him. It's baby faces, two baby faces against one heel, 2-on-1, the baby face advantage. They've already had this goddamn match, and now they just beat Ciampa up, even though he didn't really do anything to him to deserve it, because he wasn't involved in this goddamn attack, and his partner's the one that got kidnapped. So who are we supposed to be rooting for here? Not Ciampa, because they're putting an end to that because they beat him up every chance they get. He's the only one actually right now out of this group I want to see. Lashley is twisting in the wind as a babyface with no spokesperson for him, and AJ's been doing what AJ does for so long, they've just made him another, guy on the fucking roster.
And this is them using Ciampa better.
Yes. Yeah. Well, at least it takes two guys to kick shit out of him instead of just one. But at this point, we were 2 hours and 10 minutes into the program, and here came the part that everybody was talking about. The return of Johnny Sameface. And Lou Kippelman, and I mentioned a bit of this on the drive-thru this past week. I hadn't seen the segment in question as of that point. We just heard Gargano was back and talking about names and rest. He's using his real name or his previous name. I don't know if that's his real name. His name might be Jasper Tappin' Butts. I don't fucking know. But he's been using that name since before he got in their WWE system.
I believe it is his real name.
Well, why would you make one like that up?
Well, some of these guys make up some wacky names.
Well, strange as it may seem, these baseball players got strange names these days. You got who's on first, what's on second, I don't know. We won't do that whole routine. So Johnny is back. And I know you saw this. He comes out in a black windbreaker, a white T-shirt, used blue jeans, and red tennis shoes, all 5'7" and 165 pounds of him, in his Newsboy Legion outfit. He looks like a fucking community college student. And this crowd, and of course they were in Toronto, that is, I would think besides New York, the smartest audience, so people knew who he was, because he's never been on the main show before. But he comes back and is presented as a returning hero, and thankfully for them, as I said, in Toronto, they'll get that response. Inexplicably, the crowd liked seeing him back. I don't get it. Ain't never got it. Ain't never gonna get it. But for the people that are still left patiently viewing this shit, waiting for something good to happen, he's a big deal to them. And he prattled on about his NXT accomplishments and his childhood goals. And he's come back to teach his son that dreams really can come true. Remember when guys used to come back to get even? Remember when guys used to come back to win a title? Remember when guys used to come back to fucking get the girl back? Or whatever the fuck. Now I want to teach my son that dreams can come true. Well, God, the fact that you're on Monday Night Raw at 5'7", 165 with a face as expressive as a fucking snowbank, that means a dream came true, pal. And then the music interrupts. And I'm thinking, thank God something is interrupting this. And then I realize who's interrupting it, and it's Theory. My boy, what have they done to my boy? If Vince was still in his right mind and wrestling was still in its right mind, Theory would be progressing along about the path of a Kurt Angle or a Rock about 20 years ago. He doesn't have the personality and the promo of The Rock, but he's actually a better worker than The Rock was then. I don't know that he's a better athlete than Kurt Angle or even possibly as quick a learner, but goddamn, at this stage of the game, he's a better promo than Kurt. Remember, I worked with Kurt when he'd had like 8 matches in front of people down in Memphis before anybody saw him. His promos were not going to fucking set the world on fire. Theory is a grown adult man that's got the look and the size and the physique and the promo ability and the charisma personality. He's a star that's waiting to happen. He's 6 inches taller than Johnny Sameface, at least 40 pounds heavier. And they're standing face to face with each other, and the visual alone is ridiculous. It looks like a young star that was being poised for a bigger push from the Attitude Era against one of these fucking guys from Outlaw Championship Wrestling at a rec center in Shively. And the story was that Theory basically cut the promo on him. All the things you dreamed of, I've already done them. And now I'm the veteran and you're the rookie. They played off their old NXT association when they were presenting Gargano as the fucking boss of the group and Theory was a flunky. So Theory said, you can carry my briefcase or maybe you just go away. But hey, all's forgiven now that I'm a big deal and you're not. Give me a high five. And Theory asked for a high five and Johnny Sameface hits him with a super kick. Theory takes a great bump like he does everything great, and he's knocked out for good. One super kick from a fucking middle schooler. It looked like the kid that the Hardley boys super kicked for his 8th birthday about 10 years ago that led to my public dissertation of how exactly they gave me gas. And their Sameface walks out, and there's Theory laying there on top of his Money in the Bank briefcase, a future WWE champion, knocked out and left laying by a juvenile delinquent that will, I promise you, he may work on WrestleMania because they got a lot of work to do before they can weed their roster out. But I guarantee you, and I don't know how long I'll live. I'm about to have a birthday. But I will probably live to see the day that Austin Theory will main event WrestleMania. If anybody out there in the sound of my voice lives long enough to see Johnny Sameface main event WrestleMania, I will leave a clause in my will that you get money. We'll put it in escrow somewhere. What'd you think of any of this?
You know, if I didn't know any better after just watching that DX biography recently, I would think that Austin Theory may be getting the Triple H treatment after the curtain call, because there's nothing else that could explain the horrible booking of his for months now. I mean, I get it. Someone's going to go, oh, we gave you the briefcase. That doesn't take away from it the way he's been used and the way he's been treated and how many times we've seen him on his back. You're right, he's a talented guy, and you're right. I agree with you about Gargano, and I know there are a lot of people that like him, and there are matches of his that I've enjoyed. Him and Ciampa against then the Revival, but FTR, were good matches. But there's too many guys, and he's one of the top guys. There are too many guys that do the style, and I'm not into it of, I'm going to kick out of every move, and then I'll be shocked that you kicked out of my move, and it just goes back and forth, and I'm going to slap my leg for every single fucking thing I do. And he's also, again, I hate to make it about size, but he's a small guy. He's a really small guy. I get it for NXT. I get it for AEW.
He's a small guy with a bland face and no discernible fucking aggression that would intimidate anybody. It's not Conor McGregor we're talking about here. It's fucking Johnny Sameface. Yes, you can do the moves. So can a chimpanzee. Where's the money? Speaking of where's the money?
But again, let me go back to what I was saying.
All right.
They can only do so much with the talent they have and have access to. Johnny Gargano, I believe, has been a free agent since the beginning of the year, or somewhere around that period of time. He's out there still. He hasn't signed with AEW. Usually these guys came out of NXT, and when WWE showed that they weren't going to use them, Tony swooped in and got Keith Lee. And he got Adam Cole. I'm not even going to talk about how he used him. He went and got him. Johnny Gargano was available. Karrion Kross was still available. Dexter Lumis was still available. Dakota Kai was still available. I don't know if they were told wait for Triple H or what, but they were all still available.
I'm sure they were, because that's too coincidental that a couple of guys that Triple H and the NXT program had put that much stock in, and then suddenly they just don't go anywhere. I think Lee, Swerve, some of those other guys were just like, fuck, I don't trust any of y'all anymore. But Cross and obviously Gargano, he knows at least Gargano stands out in the WWE because there are so many more guys the same size with the same drawbacks, the same weaknesses, and the same shitty look as him in AEW. He wouldn't stand out of the crowd. This way, there's not that many people in WWE that are that small and look that shitty. So he'll stand out.
Yeah, and AEW would have been working 25 matches through 2 commercial breaks on Dynamite and going back and forth with someone. Same spots we see in a lot of those matches. And here we'll see. We'll see how the fans react to him. You brought up a good point earlier. Toronto traditionally is one of the most hardcore crowds. Forget about smart, just hardcore. They're into everything with WWE. Let's see how it happens in, I don't know where they're running next, Des Moines or wherever else. Let's see how they react to Johnny Gargano. And there's a difference, too, between hearing things and looking at the TV and seeing people not move.
Anyway, speaking of not moving, I sat down and watched the next match, and I don't know. I want to love all of this, but they took the joy out of it. It was Damien Priest against Edge, Beth Phoenix at ringside for Edge in Toronto, his hometown. And again, if they only hadn't broken this group up, Edge was the key to it. I think that Priest and Ripley would be better off.
And it probably wouldn't have happened if Triple H was in charge. Because remember, the story was that Edge wanted out because Vince wanted supernatural elements.
Yeah, and then they ended up not doing a supernatural.
We haven't seen any of it.
Too late, they pulled the trigger on turning on Edge. But at least, okay, now Edge can get in the ring and teach these guys something by working with them. Okay, I'll look at it that way. I do think I liked Edge better with the long hair. He looks now more like a camp counselor than a superstar. But these guys, they took their time and they worked. They established Damien Priest as a heel. They got the people into it. Edge is a hometown hero anyway. And they had a good match. They went through a break. But actually went through, I think, 2 breaks. Yes, because at one point, Edge made a comeback on Priest, did the big jump, not a dive, but a jump onto Priest from the top to the floor. And then Priest gave Edge the razor's edge through the announce desk. And that was a break spot. And I'm like, God damn it. But even still, I understand it's the modern day. So as the guy gets razor's edged through the announce desk and they go to a 3.5-minute commercial. And when they come back, Edge is giving the guy that just got razor's edge through the announce desk is giving his opponent a Hurricane Run off the top rope. But they were still, again, they were working some false finishes and some 2 counts. And the people were with this. And finally, Edge goes for the sharpshooter or whatever the case. Priest kicks him off into the referee. The referee goes to the floor. Priest hits a side slam and gets 2 chairs and goes for this concerto thing, which, again, we've talked about. This may be Edge's cross to bear. Mick Foley has to live with the fact that he inspired countless garbage wrestlers to do deathmatch shit without recognizing his talent. Edge, for a great worker and a great talker and a great talent, has to bear the burden for popularizing this fucking phony, ridiculous concerto bullshit that could never actually be made to look like it's in any way real. But it doesn't matter because Priest missed the concerto. And Edge kicks the metal rod off of the chair support, the strut or whatever, cross faces Priest with it in his mouth, and then lets go and goes for a spear. But Priest had picked up the metal rod, and as Edge is running, hits him in the head with the fucking metal rod. And the referee rolls back in, cover, 1, 2, kick out. After being hit with a metal rod over his head, in seconds, Edge kicks out and then gets back up and hits a Canadian destroyer, which then Priest doesn't sell. He pops up to his feet so that Edge can spear him. 1, 2, 3. So even the Hall of Famer that I thought would be able to teach guys, certainly was there no producer there to go, Edge, you realize that he's hitting you in the head with a metal chair rod, and 10 seconds later, you're flying over the top of him to execute a Canadian destroyer. But I guess it's modern wrestling. So 1, 2, 3. And then Edge gets 2 chairs and goes for a concerto. But Rhea Ripley comes in and nuts him. And Balor comes in and gives the double stomp. And then the best part of the whole thing, Beth came in with a chair and stood the heels off all by her lonesome. And she was standing by her man. But it was disappointing to me because it was a good match between guys I like. And then they have to do in every match. You can't just even have a good match now where somebody gets over and somebody learns something in the ring and the fans enjoy it. They have to do chairs and rods and gimmicks and it didn't make sense at the end. And I wanted better from a guy like Edge. But maybe they just told him what to do and he said, fuck it, I'm not going to argue anymore because that horse has left the barn. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what Edge wants. He came back and there was some promise early on. He was misused. The Randy Orton stuff. Judgment Day seemed promising. You were kind of starting to get me pumped into it, and then everything happened that happened. Beth was just there for, I think, WrestleMania, and she's still good. I got no problem with them using Beth, but I don't know what they're doing. And I agree with you about Finn Balor with Damien Priest and Rhea Ripley. Even if you weren't going to use Edge, there had to be someone with more of a presence than Finn Balor. Even if you like his matches, even if you're someone who likes his promos, you can't tell me he was the guy that was a good fit for this.
They all of them, the office, the writers, the producers, the television crew, the wrestlers, everybody seems like these days they want to consider themselves television and actors and entertainers and show business, but they only adopt the things from those worlds that is fun to them, or that they don't. Okay, if you're casting a movie or a television series, big money involved, you can get anybody you want, right? It's not like it's a local independent production. You got to use your cousin Ned. You can get the stars, you can get the names. The casting process in most movies, television, entertainment is arduous and is very important, not only for the success of the project, but also for the success of getting the funding or keeping the funding if you've already got it, because of who you get to play such and such part. They put no thought. Nobody puts any thought in wrestling anymore. Does this guy fit this part? Does this guy fit this suit? Does this guy look like he should be there? Or are we just doing this with this guy because he's hanging around and we like him and we ain't got no more ideas for him? Or this is the best we can do. If you ever say about a gimmick that you're about to introduce and the people in it, well, that's the best we can do, just save the fucking gimmick. Just save the gimmick. Anyway, that was Raw this week. Oh, great one. They're trying. I see they're bringing back surprise names. And unfortunately, as I've said, there's just not that many top-level surprise names to bring back, but at least they can reinvigorate their image with the fans they've pissed off about what they've done to NXT and some of their favorites over the last year. They can bring those guys back, and they can bring back a Trish Stratus or whatever, and they can put some entertainingly impromptu, parts into the program, followed by a 35-minute fucking girl segment or whatever. But it's not as easy as the Attitude Era. As I said, and I'll say again, they don't have the level of talent up and down across the board they did 25 years ago. People have seen all of this shit over and over, perpetrated by basically people that look like they have the durability and the physical frame of children, and everybody withstands it. They've been numbed and immune to angles. They've been told that everything's fucking phony and everybody's following a script and everything's predetermined. Their own biography and retrospective authorized programs on the A&E network have the biggest stars that actually drew real money and registered real ratings, talking about how they made all the shit up and cooperated in doing it. And so the people can now see, well, here's lesser talent doing shit that we now know is completely phony, and they're trying to get us to buy it. So it ain't gonna be that easy, and it ain't gonna be quick. And I don't know that they can do it unless they figure out a way to change the entire method that the wrestling is presented by the television program, by the company, and is accepted and viewed by the audience, and in a lot of cases is performed by the talent involved. Because the same shit they've been doing, just more hecticness and more chaos with the same people in front of the same fans. We don't have Austin and Rock and Mike Tyson and all this other stuff coming around, and the ability to see these things on national TV for the very first time. We don't have any of that left anymore. So they got to do what they're going to do.
You know, part of the problem, too, is when Raw debuted in 93, obviously, it looked nothing like anything else WWE had ever done. It was kind of the antithesis of what Vince McMahon envisioned wrestling to be, a small, tiny building with Memphis-style booking. At least as it would apply to WWE.
In their mind.
In their minds. Yeah, just quick, hot matches with main eventers against each other, angles, all these things happening. But it was a different look.
And it was 1 hour long.
By the time you got to 95, the show looked stale. It wasn't in the Manhattan Center anymore, and just show felt different. And that's one of the things that benefited the Attitude Era. A lot of the bad shit got by for the time because the whole show felt different. Raw was evolving. The look was changing. It felt current. It felt of the time. Not to say that time was great or anything, but it felt of the time.
Oh, well, we've gone back and looked at those 90s retrospectives. It's like, what the fuck were we thinking?
But it was fresh. That's the thing.
I'm not even talking about the wrestling business. I'm talking about people alive in the 90s. What the fuck were all of us thinking? 90s fucking sucked, and everybody proved themselves to be a blithering simpleton.
But if you watch...
But it was fresh.
But if you watch Raw today, does it feel any different than it did, by and large, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? The look of the show, the production of the show. Other than now, they just shake the cameras nonstop. Other than that shit.
and it takes 10 minutes for the guys to get to the ring before they have their match.
Yeah, it feels staler. The promos are staler. People don't connect the same way. And the show just needs some kind of real refresh. And it doesn't mean just, hey, let's get a brand new giant screen, because that doesn't really solve anything. Makes you feel better, and you could try to justify it. But the other problem is, and this is what I think they're trying to slowly change, and we'll see if they can effectively do it over the long term, Raw has been a stale and stagnant show for years. For years. When Steve Austin and The Rock took off, it had been stale for a couple of years. It's been stale for a long time now. I'm not going to say nothing could ever change, because I didn't think a Steve Austin and a Rock was going to come around in 95.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to keep going down. So you never know what will happen, but the show itself has to feel more alive. That was one of the things that AEW had over WWE for a long time, was their show felt fresh and you didn't know what was going to happen, and it didn't feel like the same wrestling show, for good or for bad. But Raw feels the same each and every week, no matter when you watch it.
Well, and now, as we'll talk about in a second, I think AEW doesn't feel like the same show as Raw. It just feels like the same show they do every fucking week, except when they do something really insane, like they did this past week. But before we get into all of that and all the strife and turmoil in AEW, what is the strife and turmoil consisting of over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week?
Thankfully, the one place where there's no strife and turmoil right now, the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, check out all of our shows, but this week, Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, his guest, Kevin Sullivan. Check that out today at suawpod.com, or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian R. Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Also, once again, want to remind everyone, subscribe to The Wrestling News, Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News. It will be debuting very soon, very, very soon, so you want to subscribe right now, and thank you to everyone who already has. A brand new concept, a brand new look at wrestling, a serious look at wrestling. If you want wrestling news delivered to you every day without any of the opinion or childishness that's constantly out there, subscribe today. No paywall, no clickbait, just the wrestling news. Look for the wrestling news wherever you find your favorite podcast or download directly from thewrestlingnews.com. A lot more to come very soon. We'll talk about it next week on the show. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership. Hey,
All right.
Hey, can I just say you played that sound, that spring sound, and actually that made me think of a rubber band, and after our talk about the Midnight Special, I started watching clips. Man, Felipe Wynn from the Spinners. What a fucking star. Come on. What a look, what a voice, what a command of the stage. The rubber band man.
When he saw that short, fat man with a band between his toes.
And of course, they kicked him out of the group, or he left the group because he wanted to be changed to Felipe Wynn and the Spinners, and they said no, and both parties lost out. They should have. It would have propelled both of them further, but I don't know what we transitioned to from this.
And I was about to say, instead, they told him to get spun. Well, speaking of telling people to get spun.